Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another evening of entertainment provided by the Southampton Estates, and Sue Waddington is our proprietress. Our entertainment tonight, what'd I say? Peggy and Nelson Runger, they've been entertaining Delaware Valley audiences for more years than they like to admit. In fact, they were here last March of 2006. See, some of you knew that. They taught Sunday school in their Morrisville Presbyterian Church for over 35 years. Peggy taught in Pennsbury and Abington School District before his son Logan was born. Nelson won an Audie for his recorded narration of David McCullough's John Adams in 2001. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Peggy and Nelson Runger.
Thank you, Fred. And thank you all for that warm welcome. We're very glad to be back here. We had a most enjoyable evening with you last March, and I'll refer a little bit later to one of the things we were asked to do after that program. A woman accompanied her husband to the doctor's office. After his checkup, the doctor called the wife into his office alone. He said, "Your husband is suffering from a very severe disease combined with horrible stress. If you don't do the following, your husband will surely die. Each morning, fix him a healthy breakfast. Be pleasant and make sure he is in a good mood. For lunch, make him a nutritious meal. And for dinner, prepare an especially attractive meal for him. Don't burden him with chores, as this could further add to his stress. Don't discuss your problems with him. That will only make his stress worse. Try to relax your husband in the evening by wearing lingerie and give him plenty of back rubs. Encourage him to watch some sort of team sporting event on television. And most importantly, prepare and serve him snacks that will satisfy his every whim. If you can do this for the next 10 months to a year, I think your husband will regain his health." On the way home, the husband asked his wife, "What did the doctor say?"
"He says you're gonna die."
Now, Joyce and Jonas Green, who were former neighbors of ours in Yardley, at last year's program, Joyce said, "You know, we enjoyed it, but I was kind of disappointed that you didn't do that thing about the telephone." And we knew what she meant, so tonight we're going to do it. It's an old Mike Nichols, Elaine May television sketch, and it's called His Last Dime. It's a story of a man way back in the days when the Bell Telephone Company was the only company in town, when you had no choice. And here's this fellow out on the highway, his car breaks down, he coasts to a stop right by a coin box, a public telephone, and he's late for an appointment, and here's what happens: his last dime.
Information.
Yeah, operator, would you check a number for me, please? George Kaplan, 4411 Huguenot Walloon Drive.
George Kaplan.
Yes, that's right.
That is Kaplan.
Yes.
That is K as in knife, A as in aardvark, P as in pneumonia, L as in lettuce, A as in aardvark once again, and N as in newel post.
I think so, yes.
One moment, sir. I'll look it up.
Thank you, operator. And if you could try to hurry, I would
I'm
really...
looking that number up now, sir.
Well, it's just that I'm running extremely late here and trying
That
to get...
number is listed in your directory, sir.
Operator, there is no directory here. There's nothing. There's no book. I swear.
Then would you please take a pencil and write the number down?
Oh, yes, I promise.
The number is Audubon 21954.
Well, hello, operator? Operator, hello?
Information.
Operator, you just collected my dime.
Information is a free service, sir. When you hang up, your dime will be returned to you.
Yes, I understand that it's usually free, but I'm telling you, in this case, I heard the dime fall and, hit all those other dimes. I know it's in there. Look, I wouldn't bother you about a dime. The thing is, it's my last dime. I have no more change. My car has just broken down. I'm over an hour late for an extremely important Hello? Operator? Operator? Hello?
Information.
Yeah, operator, please return my dime.
I cannot return your dime, sir, until you hang up. When you hang up, your dime will be returned to you.
No, it won't. Listen, I know that sound. I've heard it all my life. I know that dime is in there.
Information cannot argue with a closed mind. Why don't you try hanging up?
Because I can't take the chance. I lose my dime. I'll lose you. Look, can I go over your head? Can I speak with someone else? A human being?
You wish to speak to a human being?
Please.
Is this about your alleged dime?
It's a real dime.
One moment, sir, and I'll connect you with the information supervisor.
Oh, operator, hello, hello?
Information.
Look, there's no chance you would accidentally jostle something with your elbow and cut me off completely.
We do not work with our elbows, sir.
Oh.
Information supervisor, can I help you?
I certainly hope so.
Yes, sir.
A few moments ago, operator, I was telling the other...
Supervisor.
What?
This is the information supervisor.
I'm sorry.
That's all right, sir.
Supervisor.
Yes.
A moment ago, I was telling the operator that my dime had been collected instead of being returned.
Sir, Bell Telephone does not charge a dime.
Yes, I know. But in this case, I heard the dime fall and hit
When you hang up, your dime will be returned to you.
Look, I just went through all this.
Information is completely free, sir.
Not tonight. Now, miss, try to understand what I'm saying to you. I'm speaking to you as one human being to another. Forget you're an operator, we're just people.
Supervisor. I'm an information supervisor.
Yes, all right, supervisor.
Yes.
Bell Telephone has stolen my dime. That's what it comes down to.
Wait a minute.
Well, that's what happened. You took the dime. I trusted you.
Bell Telephone didn't steal your dime?
That's exactly what they did.
Well, the Bell Telephone Company doesn't need your dime. Bell Telephone gets millions of dimes every day.
That's my point.
You don't think they picked out your dime to steal, do you?
Yes, they picked it out and they stole it.
If you don't like doing business with us, why don't you deal with some other company?
Now, miss, you know there's nowhere else I can turn. You've got to do something.
I'm not going to argue with you.
What do you mean you're not going to argue with me?
Do you mean to sit there and tell me the Bell Telephone Company has stolen your dime?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I'd be happy to return your dime to you.
You will?
Certainly.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. What is your name and address?
Miss,
Yes?
you're going to send me a bunch of stamps, aren't you?
That's right. Yes, we are, sir.
Yeah, I knew it. I've received stamps from you people in the past. It's always a wonderful surprise. Look, you see, the thing is, I need my dime now. Can I go over your head? Is there someone else I can speak to?
Well, I could connect you with the managing supervisor, Miss Jones.
Please.
She isn't going to be able to help you either, but if you want to give it a whirl.
Miss Jones, please.
Hold the line.
And please try to hurry.
Managing supervisor, Miss Jones. Can I help you?
Oh, Miss Jones, I'm so glad I finally got hold of you.
What is it, sir?
Miss Jones, this is my story.
Yes, I'm here.
A long time ago, one of the operators inadvertently collected my last dime.
Oh, my God!
Yeah, and as I explained to her, the problem isn't the dime, but I have no more change. My car has just broken down. I'm over an hour late for a very important... I'm sorry, I don't usually do this.
There, you go ahead and cry. Bell Telephone understands.
Thank you.
You've lost your dime.
They took it away.
Well, if the Bell Telephone Company has taken your dime, then Bell Telephone will give you a free call for that dime.
Oh, Miss Jones, if that's true, I'll never forget you as long as I live.
It's true, sir.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Jones.
No, it's a pleasure to serve you.
Well, thank you very much.
Now, if you will give me the name of the party you're calling, and the number.
Miss Jones,
Yes, sir.
you're dealing here with a broken man. She collected my dime before I even heard the number. Look, forget it. I don't care anymore. Something just snapped inside me.
Listen to me, sir. If you will give me the name of your party, you do know that, sir.
Yes?
Then I can look up the number right here.
Oh, wonderful, Miss Jones. Yes, it's George Kaplan. Kaplan. As in Newell Post.
Right, sir. Hold the line.
All right.
Oh, sir.
Yes?
I have that number for you.
All right.
It's Audubon 21954.
954. Oh, thank you, Miss Jones. Now, tell me what to do.
Hold on to the receiver. When you hear the dial tone, dial your number. You have a free call.
Hold on to the receiver. When I hear the dial tone, dial this number, and I get the call free. Thank you, Miss Jones. I'll never forget you.
This is a recording. You have dialed a wrong exchange. Please check your directory or hang up and dial the operator for further service.
Oh. Thank you. That was for Joyce and Jonas. We don't get very many command performances, so it's nice to have those once in a while. I hope some of you who have had more interesting family interconnections perhaps than others will find some relevance and some resonance in this old novelty number from back in the 50s or 60s. And I'm not going to tell you the name of it because I don't want to ruin the surprise. What I have to do is find B flat on here. There it is. Many, many years ago, when I was 23, I was married to a widow who was pretty as can be. This widow had a grown-up daughter who had hair of red. My father fell in love with her, and soon they two were wed. This made my dad my son-in-law and really changed my life. Now my daughter was my mother, 'cause she was my father's wife. To complicate the matter, even though it brought me joy, I soon became the father of a bouncing baby boy. My little baby thus became a brother-in-law to Dad, and so became my uncle, though it made me very sad. For if he were my uncle, then it also made him brother to the widow's grown-up daughter, who of course was my stepmother. My father's wife then had a son who kept them on the run, and he became my grandchild, for he was my daughter's son. My wife is now my mother's mother, and it makes me very blue, because although she is my wife, she's my grandmother too. Now, if my wife is my grandmother, then I am her grandchild. And every time I think of it, it nearly drives me wild. 'Cause now I have become the strangest case you ever saw. As the husband of my grandmother, I am my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. I'm my own grandpa. We did that number a couple of months ago for a group of retired telephone people, and afterwards one of them came up to me and asked if she could have a copy of it, because she said, except for one thing in there, that actually happened in my family. A police officer pulls over a speeding car. The officer says, "I clocked you at 80 miles per hour, sir." The driver says, "Gee, officer, I had it on cruise control at 60. Perhaps your radar needs calibrating." Not looking up from her knitting, the wife says sweetly,
Now, don't be silly, dear. You know that this car doesn't have cruise control.
As the officer writes out the ticket, the man looks over at his wife and growls, "Can't you keep your mouth shut for once?" The wife smiles demurely and says,
You should be thankful you didn't have your radar detector off when it went off.
As the officer makes out the second ticket for the illegal radar detector unit, the man glowers at his wife and says through clenched teeth, "Damn it, woman, can't you keep your mouth shut?" The officer frowns and says, "And I notice you're not wearing your seatbelt, sir. That's an automatic $75 fine." The driver says, "Yeah, well, you see, officer, I had it on, but took it off when you pulled me over so I could get my license out of my back pocket." The wife says,
Now, dear, you know very well that you didn't have your seatbelt on. You never wear your seatbelt when you're driving.
and as the officer is writing out the third ticket, the driver turns to his wife and barks, "Why don't you shut up?" The officer looks over at the woman and asks, "Does your husband always talk to you this way, ma'am?"
Oh, heavens, no, officer. Only when he's been drinking.
You want to introduce this one? No, you're not. Some of you are familiar with the Broadway show, The Sound of Music. And one of the songs in it is My Favorite Things. These are a few of my favorite things. These are new words to that song.
Maylocks and nose drops and needles for knitting, walkers and handrails and new dental fittings, bundles of magazines tied up with string. These are a few of my favorite things.
Cadillacs and cataracts and hearing aids and glasses, Polydent and Fixodent and false teeth in glasses, pacemakers, golf carts and porches with swings. These are a few of my favorite things. When the pipes leak, when the bones creak, when the knees go bad, then we remember our favorite things, and then we don't feel so bad. Hot tea and crumpets and corn pads for bunions. No spicy hot food, nor food cooked with onions. Bathrobes and heat pads and hot meals they bring. These are a few of my favorite things.
Back pains, confused brains, and no fear of sinning. Thin bones and fractures, and hair that is thinning. And we won't mention our short, shrunken frames when we remember our favorite things.
When the joints ache, when the hips break, when the eyes grow dim, then we remember the great life we've had, and then we don't feel so bad. In a little Presbyterian church in the northern part of Ireland, outside Belfast, the session one day when the ruling elders decided they were going to skip Sunday school for the summer. And the pastor was dead set against this. He says the children will forget their Bible stories. We'll have a terrible time getting them back up to speed again in the fall. You shouldn't do it. But they overruled him. They cut it out anyway. And into the summer, he was walking through a hallway of the church, and he came around the corner. The little fella came running around, bumped into him. He looked up. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Pastor." Pastor says, "That's all right. Well, while you're here, let me ask you a question. Who knocked down the famous fabled walls of Jericho?" Little boy looks up at him and says, "I didn't do it." He said, "All right." He says, "What's your name?" He says, "Jerry Adams, sir." He says, "Who's your Sunday school teacher?" He says, "Mrs. Sullivan." He says, "All right, you go on your way and don't worry about us colliding here. It was just an accident." The next Sunday, he sees Mrs. Sullivan at the church, and he tells her what happened. That he asked this little boy about the walls of Jericho, and the boy said he didn't do it. Mrs. Sullivan says, "Jerry Adams is an honest boy, Pastor. If he says he didn't do it, I'd believe him." Well, now he knew the problem was more serious even than he had thought. So in the next Monday evening when the session had its meeting, he says to them, "Now, you overruled me. You insisted we drop Sunday school, and let me tell you what happened. Little fella in the church and I had a collision the other day, and just to test him, I asked him who knocked down the famous fabled walls of Jericho, and he denied it. I went to his teacher, told her what had happened with this little boy. All she did was back him up. Now he says, what are we going to do?" And the president of the board of ruling elders said, "Oh, Pastor, you're making a big thing out of this. Let's just pay for the repairs on the wall and get it over." A man is sitting in a bar in Dublin, and way down at the other end of the bar are two fellas talking, And gradually he gets to hear them, and this is what their conversation sort of went like. Say, you sound to me like you're a real Irishman. Yes, I am an Irishman. Is that right? Are you really from Ireland? Yes, lived here all my life. What part of Ireland? He says, Dublin. Dublin? I come from Dublin. Do you really? Yes, yes. What part of Dublin? Well, the southwest corner. The southwest corner of Dublin? That's where I grew up. Is that a fact? Yes. What street did you live on? Well, we lived on Dublin Lane, west. Dublin Lane, west? That's where I had me childhood. Did you really? Yes. What, do you remember the number? Yes, it was 47L. 47L? That's right. Well, now, the man at the other end of the bar calls to the bartender, and he said, hey, this is amazing, isn't it? What's happened, these guys? I mean, the bartender looks down, and he says, oh, those are the McConnell twins. They're in here every night carrying on like that. The police commissioner of Dublin was under a lot of pressure to have a woman officer patrolling the streets and walking the beat just like the men did. So he placed an ad in the daily newspaper saying that as of a certain Saturday, they were encouraging women to come and apply for the job of being a constable, a police person. And on that Saturday, he found out in his waiting room 3 lovely Irish colleens. So he called the first one in, gorgeous redhead. She sat down across the desk from him, and he talked to her for a while to put her at ease, you know, and finally he said, would you mind if I'd give you a little test? She says, well, what sort of a test? He says, well, I'd like to hold up a picture of a person, have you look at that picture for 5 seconds, then I'm going to take it down, and I want you to tell me some distinguishing characteristic about that person that would enable you to recognize him if you saw him on the street as you were walking your beat. He says, do you understand? She says, yes, I understand. He says, are you ready to take the test? She says, yes, I'm ready. Holds up the picture, 5 seconds, she looks at it, he takes it down. Now, tell me, what distinguishing thing did you notice about that person? She says, the man has only one ear. And the commissioner said, well, he says, of course, in this picture, it's a profile, don't you know, a side view. You can only see one ear. He says, all right, thank you very much. We'll be in touch. On your way out, would you ask one of the other young ladies to come in, please? So she goes out, and a brunette comes in, sits down across from him. He puts her at ease, finds she's a pleasant person, talks easily, seems reasonably bright, so he asks her the same thing about the test. She agrees that she'll take the test. He says, are you ready now? She says, yes, I'm ready now. Holds up the picture, 5 seconds, she looks at it, he takes it down. He says, tell me now, what distinguishing thing did you see in that person? She says, well, he only has one eye. He says, well, yes, you can only see one eye because it's a side view. That doesn't mean he only, all right. He says, thank you very much, we'll be in touch with you. Would you ask the last young lady to come in, please? Gorgeous blonde comes in and sits down across from him. He puts her at ease, they talk freely for a while, and he asks her about the test. She says, yes, she's willing to take the test. So he gets the picture, holds it up, 5 seconds, puts it down. He says, now, did you notice anything distinguishing about that person? She says, that man wears contact lenses. And the commissioner says, just a minute. And he opens a file drawer and he looks at a number and he pulls out a sheet of paper and he looks at it. He says, Begorra, you're right. He does wear contact lenses. How in the world did you know that? She says, well, he can't wear regular glasses. He only has one ear and one eye. In the Sunday school class in that same little church outside of Belfast, the teacher was teaching the lesson about the flight into Egypt after the baby Jesus was born and Herod was going to send his soldiers down to kill everybody in Bethlehem. So they went to Egypt. And she said, now I've given you a piece of paper. You have crayons, magic markers, pencils. I want you each to draw a picture of your idea of the flight into Egypt. So they worked away, and after a few minutes, the teacher was working on what they were going to do next in the hour, and a little girl came up to her and says, teacher, can I show you me picture? She says, yes, I'd love to see your picture. She looked at you. Oh, it's exactly what I hoped you would do. There's the donkey, and there's Mary sitting on the donkey holding the baby Jesus, and Joseph out in front leading the donkey on a rope. She says, what's this down in the corner, this spot? And the little girl says, well, that's the flea. The teacher says, the flea? What's a flea got to do with it? The little girl says, well, the angel said to Joseph, take Mary and the babe and flee into Egypt. Some 40-some years ago, the British were thinking of building the tunnel under the English Channel, what we now call the Channel Tunnel. And they decided to put out bids. So they sent bids to a large construction firm in Germany, one in France, one in Italy, and one in Dublin. And when they came to open the bids, 4 had been received, and the German firm bid 2 billion Deutschmarks. The Italian firm bid 85 trillion lira. The French firm bid 470 million francs. And the Irish firm, Sean Patrick, bid 123 pounds. Well, they looked at this and they said, that has to be a nuisance bid. Let's just ignore it. But the attorney advising them says, no, you can't do that. The man submitted a bid. It came in on time. He filled out all the proper forms. You have to talk to him. So they brought Sean Patrick over from Dublin to London. And the commissioner, the head of the commission, sat across from him. He said, now, Mr. Patrick, we're a little puzzled by your bid. And he said, let me ask you this. How big is your company? How many employees do you have? Sean Patrick says, well, besides me, there's my brother Seamus. And the commissioner says, is that it? He says, yes. Seamus and I, we're the 2 in our company. Well, he says, what sort of tools, what sort of equipment do you plan to use? Sean says, I have 2 shovels. One for Seamus, one for me. Well, the man says, could you give me an idea of your work plan, how you're going to go about doing this? He says, yes. I'm going to go down to Dover with me shovel, and I'm going to start digging over toward Calais. I'm going to send Seamus across the channel on one of the boats to Calais. He's going to start digging over towards Dover. When the 2 of us meet, you got your tunnel. Oh, the commissioner says, good heavens, what if you don't meet? Sean says, then for 123 pounds, you got 2 tunnels. The last time we came back from Europe into JFK, we were coming through customs to get our clearance through there, and right ahead of us was a little Irish nun. Sweet, dear little thing. And the man, the inspector of customs, was waving everybody through. He wasn't paying any attention. Finally, when the nun got up there, just ahead of us, he decided all of a sudden he was going to be very thorough. And he says, sister, do you have anything to declare? She says, no, nothing at all to declare. He says, you didn't buy anything over there that you're bringing into the country? No, not a thing. Well, he says, do you mind if I examine your luggage? She says, no, it's all right. She unzips. She had a little valise. She unzipped it, and he goes through it, and he pulls out a pint bottle of a light brown colored liquid, and he says, sister, what is this? She says, oh, I forgot. That's a little holy water from the shrine at Lourdes. Well, he unscrews the cap and smells it. He puts the cap back on. He says, sister, I don't like to quarrel with a lady of the cloth, but this is Irish whiskey. She says, praise God, a miracle. Peter Casey goes off for his weekly golf date with his friend Harry. And his wife says to him, Peter, don't fail to be home by 4 o'clock. The Swansons are coming for dinner tonight. He says, I'll be here, 4 o'clock. Off he goes. 4 o'clock comes, no Peter. 5 o'clock comes, the Swansons arrive. Peter Casey still hasn't shown up. 6 o'clock, Mrs. Casey and the Swansons sit down and eat. 7 o'clock, they go home. 9:30, Peter Casey comes in the door. His wife is furious. She says, "You promised me you would be." He says, "Just a minute. Let me explain to you what happened." She says, "All right, what?" He says, "The first 3 holes went just fine. On the 4th hole, we're standing out there in the fairway, and some fool behind us gets on the tee, hits his drive, comes, hits Harry right in the head. Harry falls down dead." "Oh my gosh," his wife said, "that's terrible." He says, "Sure, because from then on it was hit the ball, drag Harry. Hit the ball, drag Harry." A priest goes into a bar in Killarney. He walks up to the first man at the bar. He says, "Do you want to go to heaven?" The man says, "Aye, Father, that I do." He says, "Put that glass down and go stand against the wall." Goes to the next man. "Do you want to go to heaven?" "Yes, sir, I do, Father." "Put the glass down, go stand against the wall." And he goes right down the bar until he gets to the last person. He says, "Do you want to go to heaven?" Man looks at him and says, "No, thank you, Father." Priest looks at him and says, "What do you mean? You don't want to go to heaven when you die?" Man says, "Oh, when I die, yes. I thought you were getting up a group to go now." Now, the quintessential Irishmen are Pat and Mike. This is the true story of what happened when Mike was at death's door, lying on his hospital bed, barely able even to speak, and his friend Pat is standing there, turning his hat in his hands, and Mike says, "Patrick, you've been me friend all me life. Would you do so good a thing for me as to fulfill my dying wish?" Pat says, "Yes, yes, whatever it is. Tell me what you want, Mike." He says, "I want you to go down to the corner liquor store and get a bottle of Bushmills Irish whiskey." He says, "I'll do it." And he goes out, and 5 minutes he's back with the brown bag with the whiskey, and he takes the bottle. He says, "Do you have a glass here in your room, Mike?" He said, Don't open it." He says, "Don't open it?" "No. After I've died, after the wake, after the ceremony, as they're lowering me coffin into the ground, I want you then to open it and pour the contents up and down over me casket until it's empty." Pat looks at the bottle. He says, I'll do it. Do you mind if I run it through me kidneys first?" Tim O'Connell's mother comes into his room at 7 o'clock in the morning. She says, "Tim, get up, time to go to school." He says, "I'm not getting up." She says, "You have to get up, you have to go to school." He says, "I'm not getting up, I'm not going to school." She says, "You have to go to school, it's 7 o'clock, get up." He says, "I'm not going to school. Everybody at school hates me. The kids hate me, the teachers hate me, even the janitor hates me. I'm not going to school." She says, "Tim, you have to go to school. You're 43 years old and you're the principal." Eddie and Brian, 2 bricklayers, are sitting up on top of a 120-foot brick chimney they have just built, perfectly round, a beautiful chimney. And this is the last day. They're sitting up there admiring the view, having their lunch. Eddie is looking at the blueprints, and he mutters, "What fools we are." Brian says, "What do you mean, what fools we are? This is a beautiful chimney. It's perfect. What's wrong?" "We've been holding the plans upside down. We were supposed to be digging a well." Mary Kate and Sean, a little elderly couple, are sitting in front of their peat fire in their living room, enjoying the warmth and the glow of the peat. And Mary Kate says, "You know what I'd like to have?" Sean says, "What is it, dear?" She says, "A dish of ice cream." He says, "I'll go get you a dish of ice cream." She says, "Wait." She said, "Could I have chocolate sauce on it?" He says, "Yes, I'll put chocolate sauce on it for you." He gets up. She says, "Wait, I think you should write it down." He says, "I don't have to write it down. I'll bring you a dish of ice cream with chocolate sauce on it." She says, "Well, could I have some of those colored sprinkles on top of it? Yes, I'll put sprinkles on top of the chocolate sauce on top of the ice cream. She says, I still think you should write it down. He said, I don't need to write it down. I can remember that. Could I have a maraschino cherry on the very top? Yes, certainly. I'll bring you ice cream, chocolate sauce, colored sprinkles, maraschino cherry. Be back in a second. And he goes off. 15 minutes later, he comes back. He puts a tray on her lap, scrambled eggs, bacon, coffee, orange juice. She says, I knew you should have written it down. He says, why? What's wrong? She says, you forgot me toast. Thank you. The boss of a big company needed to call one of his employees about an urgent problem with one of the main computers. He dialed the employee's home number and was greeted by a child's whispered, hello? Feeling put out at the inconvenience of having to talk to a youngster, the boss asked, is your daddy at home? Yes, whispered the small voice. May I talk to him? The man asked. To his surprise, the small voice whispered, no. Wanting to talk to an adult, the boss asked, is your mommy there? Yes, came the answer. May I talk to her? Again, the small voice whispered, no. Knowing that it was not likely that a young child would be left home alone, the boss decided he would just leave a message with the person who should be there watching the child. Is there anyone there besides you? The boss asked the child. Yes, whispered the child. A policeman. Wondering what a cop would be doing in his employee's home, the boss asked, may I speak with the policeman? No, he's busy, whispered the child. Busy doing what? Asked the boss. Talking to Daddy and Mommy and the fireman, came the whispered answer. Growing concerned and even more worried as he heard what sounded like a helicopter through the telephone, the boss asked, what is that noise? A hello-copter, whispered the young child. What is going on there? Asked the boss, now alarmed. In an awed, whispering voice, the child answered, the search team just landed the hello-copter. Alarmed, concerned, and more than a little frustrated, the boss asked, what are they searching for? Still whispering, the young voice replied, along with a muffled giggle, me. Now you're going to, for our finale, have to use your imagination. You're going to have to imagine me in a dazzling white suit, playing a guitar, and with heavy sunglasses, and here's the really hard part, thick, wavy black hair. Are you lonesome tonight? Does your tummy feel tight? Did you bring your Mylanta and Tums? Does your memory stray to that bright, sunny day when you had all your teeth and your gums? Is your hairline receding, your eyes growing dim? Hysterectomy for her, and it's prostate for him. Does your back give you pain? Do your knees predict rain? Tell me, dear, are you lonesome tonight? Is your blood pressure up? Good cholesterol down? Are you eating your low-fat cuisine? All that oat bran and fruit, Metamucil to boot, helps you run like a well-oiled machine. If it's football or baseball, he sure knows the score. Yes, he knows where it's at, but forgets what it's for. So your gallbladder's gone, but your gout lingers on. Tell me, dear, are you lonesome tonight? When you're hungry, he's not. When you're cold, he is hot. Then you start that old thermostat war. When you turn out the light, he goes left, you go right. Then you get his great symphonic snore. He was once so romantic, so witty and smart. How did he turn out to be such a cranky old guy? So don't take any bets. It's as good as it gets. Tell me, dear, are you lonesome tonight? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building.